Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
Star Trek podcast.
Aside from Jake, not one of them was, I don't know, real. I'm not sure who we can trust on the station at this point.
Do any of them know you're suspicious?
Probably. I've asked a few questions, been a few places that might have tipped them off. They'll be keeping close tabs on me. I'd called Starfleet, but what do I tell them? My wife doesn't seem like my wife. Cisco's been making security arrangements without consulting me.
They might even call Commander Cisco and start asking questions about you.
Well, that's what I was afraid of.
Now, when are the Paradas due?
38 hours.
I don't want them coming anywhere near this place until we get this cleared up.
Agreed.
Go on about your business. Don't do anything to get their attention. In the meantime, I'll do some investigating. If I can confirm your suspicions, we can go to Starfleet and the Bajoran authorities at the same time.
I'm glad you're back, Odo.
We'll get to the bottom of this.
Okay, how about this? You want to get the old podcast started?
Yeah, I think so.
About 10 minutes of penis talk. Now we can transition into regular old podcast talk.
Just got to get it out of our system so people don't know our secrets, secrets.
Nothing disgusting about it.
Penises are gross, and I'm gross. You need to whip my penis and balls to make me feel less gross.
Okay, all right, that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a different podcast.
Save that for the eventual Patreon. In the meantime,
okay, it's not even funny anymore.
In the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and call this the beginning.
We're gonna go ahead and call this the beginning of episode
100. Dan is in a childish mood tonight, which is great.
It's because I got the bubbly
the bubbly buzz.
Bubbly bounce.
Bounce. Is that a new form of bubbly?
It's got caffeine.
It's got caffeine.
Well, I thought the buzz had caffeine. Does the bubbly bounce have cocaine in it?
I thought it was called bubbly buzz, but I was
think
wrong.
it's bounce.
It is called bubbly bounce.
They only had that one flavor.
I see it on the can. All right. It says bounce.
So, this is episode 142
I'm certain I can read.
of the It's Got Star Trek podcast. And we welcome you to that podcast. You are welcome. And
Thank you.
and what I want to do is I want to take us all back in time.
Oh no, what's happening?
Use your mental powers. Use your mental imagination. You can do this even if you have aphantasia. Even if you suffer from aphantasia, you can imagine the concept.
That's where you can't watch Fantasia without blacking out.
Yeah. Let's go back in time.
That movie's creepy, by the way.
Yes, it is. We're going to go back in time.
There's partial frontal nudity.
We're going to go back in time to the beginning of this podcast. No, we're going to go back in time to February 1994.
Wow, what was happening in February of 1994?
See,
I don't recall.
I put something out there and Dan picked it up.
Yep, sprinkled it.
That's good
I
podcasting.
swept it up into my mouth.
I was on the cusp of turning 14 years old. I was still recovering from a torrid summer camp affair from the previous year.
Okay.
Mentally recovering from that. Okay. U.S. Olympic figure skater Nancy Kerrigan had only just the prior month in January been attacked by Shane Stant at the behest of Jeff Gillooly. Who was the ex-husband, I believe the ex-husband and compatriots with her rival Tanya Harding. 1994.
Yeah.
I was thinking of
January
Carrie. I thought I was thinking Carrie Strug for some reason. I was like, what? I didn't remember this part of Carrie Strug.
That would be a totally separate Olympic-related anecdote. But different year, entirely, in fact. Nelson Mandela would soon be elected president of South Africa.
Oh, right.
O.J. Simpson was still most famous for starring as Nordberg in the Naked Gun movies in February of 1994.
Kimmy Gibbler was still going strong as a character on Full House.
Ooh.
Right, the original run of Full House, not the reboot.
I always enjoyed Kimmy Gibbler.
Reunion.
One of my favorite parts of Full House.
Yeah. It's a good character.
Most important, though, of course, is that Deep Space Nine aired its seminal second season sci-fi, semi-noir, semi-spy thriller,
The alliteration
mess with
continues.
Miles episode Whispers. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight.
It's not even just messing with Miles. It's messing with... Should we spoil it?
I mean, okay, I don't know where you're going with this. First of all,
What
yes,
are you going to spoil?
the people we warn people in the description of the podcast that they should watch the episode prior to the podcast.
But we didn't watch them watch it.
we did not watch them watch it.
Yeah. Watch it.
So, okay, what were you going to spoil?
Well, 'cause
mess with clone. You were talking about they're messing with Clone Brian.
Yeah, Faux Brian.
Oh, you're calling it Faux Brian.
And
I
you're
call
calling
it
Clone Brian.
Clone
I like
Brian.
that. I like but we all got something. What are you gonna call him, Jesse? Zone Brian.
Zone Brian?
Grown Brian. It's you, Julian. I'm so grumpy.
Yeah,
so
so
grumpy throughout this whole episode. Every man I say is mad,
extra suspicious
except when I'm
and
talking to
grumpy.
Cisco, and I'm like, oh, Captain. Oh,
So yes,
I think he was still suspicious of Cisco.
he was, but he wasn't like Julian. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I like I believe it's your O'Brien impersonation.
I'm trying not to do any kind of
And he
weird
grabbed
accent. or anything.
Quark.
Trying
and
not
was,
to
like,
do a
roughing him up.
whimsical racist Irish accent, leprechaun accent.
Exactly, Leprechaun. You said that.
Well, because it wouldn't sound like Cole Meany anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Jesse, you're right.
He's
but
no leprechaun.
He laid his hands on Quark, which was like mucho fucked up.
I know.
It was
right?
Boku fucked up. Like
So-
you shouldn't be laying your hands on people
It's
like
too much
that.
coffee, man.
Let's put it. Let's
Jamaican
put
blend.
too much coffee. This guy's got too much of the bubbly buzz, bubbly bounce.
You know he ordered 4 Jamaican blends, double strong, double sweet.
Yeah.
That's his favorite.
That was part of the problem, I think.
He's getting a little twitchy. Okay, we're gonna get to that. Let's give a brief outline of what we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna talk about Whispers, but first we'll give our overall impressions. Then we will talk about the sci-fi twist to the classic paranoia storyline. We'll also talk about how this probably, you could argue that this is one of the first mess with Miles, O'Brien must suffer type episodes.
Brian must suffer.
And so we can discuss a little bit about that. And I'm also curious about your thoughts about whether or not this story may have worked better if it were sort of later in the series when the characters are settled in a little bit more. And then finally, I mean, we'll discuss other stuff along the way, I'm sure. But the other thing I wanted to touch base on is whether or not there's anything the crew could have done differently to maybe not freak out the old Clone Brian, right? So that's the outline for this evening. We'll see how closely we can follow it.
I'm already thinking about the last part
That's
of
a
how
good
they could,
outline.
how,
All
they,
right.
how they could not have
Well, let's go
gotten
back to
Faux Brian.
help me out. Let's go back to the first part, which is
Okay.
overall impressions. And this is where if we had a clever like button we could push, there would be some song about overalls, like a pun on overalls.
Overalls in my mouth all day and all night. It's right. You got overalls.
But ideally, we would do something a little bit more well produced and thought out
More
than
in
that.
tune.
In your mouth all day.
In your mouth all day.
All right. You want to start, Dan?
So this episode, it goes by quickly for me, and maybe that's in part because if you had an episode like this, I don't want to be like one of those people that's like, well, nowadays they would have done this with this, because I don't want to like pretend that I know what I'm that smart, but like but it would seem like stuff like this would stretch over like a season arc and or maybe if several episodes because this was more serial or episodic television.
Yes.
It seems like this would be like a candidate for one of them serialized stuff because it's almost because they have to touch on each point so quickly. They don't have time to linger on anything.
Oh, like, so it'd be over several episodes, Replicant O'Brien.
I can see that happening.
They'd be trying to figure it out.
I can see that happening
To me,
because
that sounds interminable.
they sound.
And I like the storyline, but I don't know. I think it's a pretty.
I don't think, that doesn't sound right to me.
It's a pretty slight plot, is the thing.
Well, that's the thing is it's a slight plot because.
But you think they could? There's a version of it that could be beefier
Yes.
and interwoven with the other story stuff.
That's what I'm saying is that it's the plot is slight because they have to touch on things so quickly. They can't really take too much time to delve into.
It's like playing
anything.
Duck, Duck, Goose. You got to touch on things quickly.
You like touching on things quickly.
You got to go duck, duck, duck,
Yeah.
duck.
Goose! Ah!
Yes.
Nobody
precisely.
plays that anymore because of COVID. and video games.
Look, I agree with you about the speed of this episode. This is a very straightforward story. It's thin. I don't mean that as a critique. It's just from a storytelling perspective. It's just this fucking story. It's boom, boom, boom. It's just O'Brien.
And that's why I'm saying, like, the story as it is, right, it's not exactly like intriguing for a whole season arc necessarily, but I think what I'm saying is what contributes to that is the fact that they didn't have a chance to go sort of into anything. It's just kind of like this happened.
Another. It's not an issue. It's just it's a fact of life. It's a fact of life. I remember seeing this episode when it first aired, when I was nigh on almost very nearly 14.
You kind of sounded like you were doing an Irish accent when you said it.
I was not. Don't you fucking accuse me of that shit.
I almost didn't say that.
I almost didn't say that.
Oh man, you.
But I remember when this episode aired that I was legitimately surprised by the twist. I thought the twist was great. And I still think the twist is great, but it's one of those twists that make rewatching the episode, and I've seen this episode a million times, it's still enjoyable, but you never get that first high. You know what I'm saying?
That's true, yeah.
Right.
Once you know what's going on,
kind of like leaving Las Vegas.
I don't have context to understand that analogy.
It's just one of those movies that you see, and then after,
When you see the end of it,
by the end of it, you're just kind of like, that was a good movie.
yeah, this was a good movie, but in TV show form, the TV show version of a movie.
Yeah.
Or
like, what's another movie that, like, any kind of, I mean, can you think of,
like in Seven?
Can you think of M. Night?
What's in the box?
Yeah. Can you think of it exactly like that, or any kind of M. Night, classic M. Night,
Shyamalan.
Like, could any of those really be? I guess you could watch the Unbreakable again.
I was gonna say I used to think you could watch Unbreakable more, but it's a good movie. But I don't know. It's a dour movie.
Yeah,
it's just dour.
It's just kind of when you know. Yeah, it is kind of dour actually. It's one of those. It's been a while since I'd seen this episode, and when I was watching it, I was like, "Huh, what's going on?" Oh yeah, I kind of. And then I think when they started talking about chasing him, I was like, "Wait a minute! I think I remember this. What's going on? I think I remember what the deal is." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, okay." And then like the whole episode came flooding back to me at that moment. And then the part where Molly was being a meanie pants to him. That's when I was like, I was like, yeah, that's right, it's this episode. It like, because it'd been so long since I've seen it that I couldn't quite remember which one it was about. And then when it all,
which way is O'Brien fucked with in this episode?
Yeah,
and and the thing is like you said, Dan, both Clone O'Brien and Real O'Brien, to a lesser degree, are both fucked with in this episode because Real O'Brien has to watch himself die at the end.
Yeah, that's kind of a fucking bummer.
Yeah, because he's all making that face at the end, like,
and he gets kidnapped.
Man.
He gets kidnapped.
Yeah, and they socked him in the face. You could tell.
So I guess there were these things that they threw in there just to try to, like, in retrospect, make it seem like for example, when Julian asks O'Brien if his mother and father are in good health, you know, and he's like, Julian, I told you that yesterday, and Julian's like, oh, did you? I don't remember. Of course, and now we know, of course, and so we're led to believe that. Oh, and when the first time you watch it, you're led to believe like, oh, this must be an alien Julian because he doesn't know the secrets of O'Brien. But then it's not until after the episode's over, you're like, oh, wait a minute, it's the other way around.
The secrets of O'Brien.
I
want a whole Star Trek series, Star Trek: The Secrets of O'Brien.
It was actually turned out in the end, it wasn't that alien Julian didn't know the secrets of O'Brien. It was that normal Julian was trying to see
good old bog standard Julian Bashir,
trying to see what O'Brien was all about, you know.
Right.
And so there was some kind of interesting things like that. Him ordering the Jamaican blend, like, I don't know, they really put an emphasis on. Has he ordered Jamaican?
It was the 90s.
Has he put?
They're all about different kinds of coffee.
Well,
and this blend and that blend and this kind of coffee.
Rectigino.
Yeah. Did they ever talk about Jamaican? O'Brien drinking this Jamaican blend, double strong, double sweet.
Jamaican else? O'Brien crazy?
Yep. That.
Yeah.
Did they ever mention that anywhere in Star Trek to begin with?
Not to my recollection.
I don't know if it ever got
Jamaican O'Brien be
specific
crazy?
to like the kind of coffee he drank, but they
why did
talk
they
about him drinking.
So
coffee.
did they bring that in to try to make it seem like this O'Brien really? This must really be O'Brien.
Star Trek more hip.
No, I mean, they put it in there for a reason, and that reason, I'm not talking specifically because they mentioned a weird coffee. I'm just saying they could replace coffee with, you know, favorite type of.
What are you saying? Whiskey?
Like
You're saying whiskey?
No.
Well, it's very
I was gonna.
specific.
You were thinking.
I wasn't. I was gonna say frikkendo stew. That's what I was thinking. It was
Wait.
like the frikkendo stew.
What the hell is
Frickin'
frikkendo stew anyway?
I don't know. It looked kind of mushy to me.
Oh yeah,
Looked like some kind of
the
dog
stew
food.
looks simultaneously disgusting and tasty.
You know, with that frikkendo stew, he was all like, "Keiko, you hate this shit," and she's like, "But you like it." And then a second later, he's like, "Keiko, why aren't you eating any of this shit? Is something wrong?" And it's like we just established that she doesn't like frikkendo stew,
Yeah.
but then she's just like, "No reason." It was like, why? Well, you established that she doesn't like frikkendo stew, and then like the next question O'Brien says is, "Why aren't you eating this shit you don't like?" You rewatch it, you'll see what I
Well,
mean.
yeah.
But so the point,
Well, I did rewatch. Right. And I know what you mean.
yeah. So
What are you accusing Jesse of anyway? You're accusing Jesse of not watching a Star Trek
if you,
episode?
I didn't accuse you
I
of anything.
prepare for the
If you
podcast.
think I'm accusing you of something, well, that's on you, buddy.
That's what he said. He said
That's what he said. So
I'm a little
so,
instigator.
So these little details like the double strong, double sweet, frikkendo ski. I was gonna try school like
skeet.
I was trying to say school like Cartman for some reason. Stew. Do they bring up these little details about O'Brien to be like, look, this is O'Brien. This is really O'Brien. See, look at all these very
Right,
specific
right.
O'Brien things he has. How he mentions to Keiko, how to Cisco, he's like, Keiko's really fond of Jake. That's supposed to make us think like, oh,
Jaco.
wow. That's supposed to make us think it's like, wow, this O'Brien really thinks he's O'Brien. He even has the history of knowledge of Keiko, knowing that she's fond of Jake. It's all these specific these things that they give these O'Brien specific sort of details, and it's like kind of like they made a point to do that, and it was
You get a lot of O'Brien in this episode. Like if you've never, I think it's like the most you ever see of his home life, I guess, up to that point. Well, maybe not necessarily, but
There's a few times on TNG,
yeah,
but not
yeah.
maybe not
So-
quite. It's hard to. It's
but
hard
it's
to
a
gauge.
bunch of
It
you go
feels
back
like
to
more.
his quarters several times.
Well, and it
Well,
matters
so-
more thematically because forget about the screen time. It's just like it's in your mind that like there's something weird with his family. There's something weird with the.
That's
like,
what I'm
it's-
saying. They keep bringing up these specifics to make it seem
It's
like
not my Keiko.
to make it because we realize after the fact that was a fake O'Brien, and they at first it seemed like they were giving these detailed specific things about him. So you would be like, oh, that must be the real O'Brien because he knows all these things. But later on, you're just supposed to retroactively be in awe of like, wow, they really made that O'Brien like a real O'Brien because he even knew that Keiko.
It must
like
be
him.
O'Brien. Yeah.
It was. They even implanted memories into him. It wasn't the same as when Picard orders Earl Grey hot. That's just part of Picard's character. They specifically brought up this Jamaican double strong, double sweet, not not to feel comfortable with O'Brien's character like it is with Earl Grey with Picard. It's just to bring up sort of an arbitrary fact about O'Brien to make you be like,
I don't think that was
that's
introduced.
O'Brien.
I believe that he's had his Jamaican blend,
Yeah,
or at
but-
least double. What was it?
When was
Double
the
hot,
last-
double
I
sweet.
think that sounds
Double-
more
Then
familiar than the Jamaican blend.
Well, then
the
look-
double sweet Jenks.
Yeah. Okay. What about the frikkendo stew then?
that I've never
heard of that before. Or
Is that a real thing, or is that like fungili? Is that a made up?
And I always get
Fujili.
confused because she says endive, and I think there's endive and endive, and
That's
I think
made
they're
up, too.
they're two parts of the same thing. I've
Where you've
heard-
got
That's just
eggplant and
different pronounce.
aubergines, eggplants and aubergines,
what?
eggplants and aubergines.
No, I'm talking about
You know
how
that heavy metal band we had in high school, eggplants and aubergines?
No, I'm talking
It
about
wasn't very good.
I'm talking about endive spelled Endive.
EIO.
Endive is endive, but people also pronounce it endive. And my question was, are they two different pronunciations of the same thing? I
Yes.
heard somewhere that it's two parts of the same plant, and they just happen to be spelled the same.
I guess I don't
but
really
pronounced
know,
differently.
but-
So the second thing
sounds
is
like madness
totally
to me.
plausible, but sounds ludicrous to me.
Yeah,
It sounds a little
I cannot
iffy.
provide an answer with any sort of confidence. However, our audience is sufficiently large that
Are you saying they're large, like physically? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying we have a
I mean,
sufficiently
compared to a
large
Smurf,
audience.
yes. Compared to a Smurf, we are big, but compared to a giant, we are normal sized.
The numbers
like
are good,
Smurfs.
Dan. What I'm saying is the numbers are fucking good, and somebody out there in our global audience can tell us if there is a difference between endives and ondives. And
There's not.
and my guess is there's probably not. All right, we're still in the overall impressions category right here.
Yeah,
Don't
well,
jump
really,
ahead, Dan.
Dan really takes the term overall quite literally.
Yeah, over all of it.
Overalls.
Well, this is topical. Fricandeau, according to Google, it's just a slice of veal or beef loin.
Okay, there you go.
It also says a dish made from veal or beef loin.
So she's replicating some veal.
Usually fried or stewed and served with a sauce.
It looked stewed.
The south? A sauce?
South.
Even though it's a minor thing, I do find the eating culture sometimes funny on Star Trek because they have replicators, right? Okay. Some people like to cook from scratch, like Riker or Pike, but for the most part, people are replicating stuff. Cisco? Is there Lieutenant Orem?
Captain Mount?
Anson?
Pike.
I said Pike.
Oh, did you say
I
Pike?
said Riker and Pike.
Said Pike.
Well, they didn't have replicators back then, did they?
They did too.
They kind of did. That's a whole nother debate I don't want to get into.
They were
right now.
3D printers back then. They were 3D printers with kind of
on Star Trek, like little things lifted up and food popped out on a tray. So to me, that's a proto replicator. Whatever.
Cisco liked to cook too.
Cisco liked to cook. But anyway, who cares about who likes to cook? These are replicating. People replicate stuff, and the conversation they had.
Keiko talked the most about replicating, actually.
Well,
in the domestic sense.
The thing that was interesting to me is that you've got. What they're trying to do is they're trying to set up the sort of standard sitcom or drama,
right, yeah.
Husband wife sort of tropey conversation, sort of some sort of issue, generate some tension there. But it just doesn't work so well in a world of replicators because it seems ludicrous to me that people wouldn't just replicate whatever the fuck they want. Like, you don't necessarily have to have a shared meal. And I know shared meals are awesome, and there's a lot of worthwhile stuff to the concept of people eating the same meal.
Maybe.
But that doesn't have to be like an everyday thing. I just imagine...
That's a very 20th century idea.
I think people already frequently do that, where they're like, I'm going to have this, and you can have that. And we can sit together and eat the individual foods that are most...
We don't even have to be in the same room. We just know that the other one's eating something.
We don't even have to be fucking married.
I mean, the big deal the big deal they make on all those travel shows and stuff about sharing food together, and it's true, is that it's a community experience. You learn not just about each other, but you learn about each other's history through the kinds of food they're able to grow there,
and
the process, the culture that led to that kind of food. And when you eat the same thing, it's easier to share that in common when you're eating the same thing.
Yes, and I agree that in
the same style,
it's human nature.
In many contexts, that's the way to go. But I also allow for the not just possibility but probability that when you have fucking infinite food available,
absolutely,
and also people are all about doing what's best for themselves
needs
and their
evolve.
bodies, stuff that you are going to get. If you want a bowl of pudding, you can have a bowl of pudding.
I know I don't want to eat that fricandeau stew, and I would rather eat an endive and
Patrick wants Ebola pudding
and a bowl of pudding.
I said a bowl of pudding, not Ebola pudding.
I'll go with just about anything besides that fricandeau stew.
Endive is a leafy curly green that is a member of the daisy family. It is closely related to chicory, radicchio, and Belgian endive. Yeah. The rocket-shaped vegetable we call endive is actually pronounced endive. It's a Belgian endive, and guess what? It doesn't grow in nature, but actually requires a very labor-intensive, unnatural cultivation process.
That's true.
That's from Huffington Post. So there's some
so
maybe they aren't part of the same thing.
Global audience, stand down.
They are the same thing.
Global audience, stand down. You do not need to write in because we have confirmation.
I'm still not clear on what the difference is.
I'm convinced
that
there is no difference.
Sometimes pronounced endive.
No,
I thought that's what you said.
No, the endive is the leafy curly green. The rocket-shaped vegetable is endive.
No, but that's not what you just said.
That's what I just fucking read.
You just said it's some people say this, but often it's pronounced this, and the rocket anyway, don't worry about it. It's not
I read specifically what this said, which is one's the leafy green.
I couldn't care less at this point.
Vegetable.
I couldn't care less at this point.
Can we have an
I'm just move
podcast?
forward. It's irrelevant.
But I'm just saying that one is the leafy green and one is a rocket-shaped
All right,
vegetable.
what about the sci-fi twist? What'd you think of that whole thing?
I think it's a really great sci-fi twist.
Well,
but it's really is only super awesome effective like the first time you see it, and then after that you're kind of like, well, I know what's going to happen.
Well, specifically about the whole because it kind of felt like one of them spy movies or something, where somebody's like getting all paranoid. Oh, I mean, what's that movie, with the guy?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
It's like a thrillers movies.
Quantum of Solace?
No, The Bourne Identity. Oh. Where it's not exactly like that, but in The Bourne Identity, he doesn't know what's up, but he's getting all freaked out because people are chasing him. Mm-hmm. Except in that case, they actually are. So it's not a very good example.
The Truman Show.
Oh, the Truman
Well, we
Show.
kind of know the deal from the beginning of that
Yeah.
one. I guess we do from the Born Identity, too, but we're kind of learning as the thing goes on with Born Identity.
Well, with this, there's a little bit of that. It's not film noir exactly, but there is a bit of that. People are not who they seem. There's the narration part, which is not something you'd normally see in like the spy movie, right? So I don't know. It seems like they're mixing together a few different things pretty effectively in my book.
Well, that's
Yeah.
like, and to bring back the example of Julian and O'Brien, Julian's like I said before, Julian was asking O'Brien about his mom and dad, and we're led to believe it's because it's an alien Julian. That's why he didn't know about O'Brien's history, but he was really testing O'Brien to see if O'Brien knew his own history.
Yeah, and then like we mentioned with his daughter acting weird and his wife clearly acting weird.
I think the Molly thing was the dead giveaway
Yeah.
that it was like that it was a faux Brian, because that's always the deal in shows is the kids are the ones that you can't trick.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the real clue, that to be like, this is not real O'Brien. That's the deal.
No, that's a good point. And what's funny is with the O'Brien narration part, the whole log entry kind of conceit. When you watch it through a couple times, you start to realize that that's all like, there's just like a whole bunch of exposition where he's just explaining things.
Right.
But it's well done. I mean, it's a good way to incorporate the exposition into the show, but the plot also completely falls apart if you have to have some sort of like inner monologue of O'Brien's. Otherwise the story doesn't work. And I thought this is, in the context of Star Trek, having him do this personal log was a very effective way. They've done it before to do that.
So is that why you think they might have put it closer to the end of the series, because they would have had us a chance to learn more about O'Brien?
Yeah.
Like, we would come into this episode with more knowledge about O'Brien, and he maybe need like a little less.
We would have had more
exposition.
learning.
Well, it's a good. It's the thing is I kind of go both ways on it, because on the one hand, it feels like if the characters were a little bit more settled in, right? Because this is midway through the second season, or good chunk of the way through the second season, and we know the characters. They have some early history already, but like most Star Trek shows of that era, they're not quite there yet. You're not quite in love with all the characters yet. And you don't know all their little foibles and things like that.
We do know O'Brien from TNG, but not really the O'Brien Keiko Family Man O'Brien
Not so
dynamic.
much,
Yeah. So you could argue that if it was a little bit later on, there might be like a little bit more meat on the bones. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, if it was a little bit later on in the series, you might not buy the idea that O'Brien wouldn't just simply be like, hey, Captain Sisko, something's up. Everyone's acting fucking weird. Mm-hmm. Tell me, he doesn't really do that here. He's asking some questions, but they're all like sort of, for lack of a better term, like sort of sheepish, like he's not quite, even when he's like pretty sure, I don't know. It's just, to me, I think if you're like season 4, season 5 O'Brien, you're just going up to Captain Sisko saying like, I think there might be some alien shit going on here. Mm-hmm. We trust each other. People are acting weird. In
TNG, they do crazy shit like that. They'd be like, I think there's a fucking alien that's changing time, and everything that's been happening for the past 3 years actually is going to happen tomorrow instead. And I'm the only person that's experienced this. And Picard's like, oh, interesting. That's wild. Maybe, well, can you tell me some more about that so I can just kind of believe you? You know, like, I just believe you all the time.
It just seemed like that would be more of a possibility there. One thing I really liked about this plot is that we don't ever get any specifics about the Paradan government, the Parada people.
All we know about the Parada is they get stinky pants when they get angry. And they never followed up on that.
Stinky pants.
That was a fact that they introduced, but never got followed up upon.
I don't think that it was stinky pants.
Well, they got some kind of stinky stink.
Well, Brian said something about
they get a stink.
Clone Brian said it was particularly strong when they were angry.
Right, and so
it probably comes out of their armpits.
But they never really followed up on that. I guess that was part of another list of random factoids about O'Brien they threw into the episode. It's like, oh, see, O'Brien knew that about them. He must be the real O'Brien.
Well, he knew that because he was just he wouldn't, a normal O'Brien wouldn't have known that. It was just something that because he had just been there, right? He was talking to them, so he was
So,
relaying
okay,
that.
so
he
why-
could have said whatever shit they wouldn't know because they didn't meet them.
Okay, so then in that case, there was almost
that one's
there
not
was
even
almost,
true.
There was almost no point in bringing that line up at all.
I like that line.
I mean, does it
it's
really
just-
add any texture to anything?
flavor.
It's world building.
It's a little
It's
flavor.
world building. It's describing aliens that we barely meet in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to have this sort of like, hey, this alien is a wiggle woggle, you know? That's kind of cool. But if they had more time to go into stuff like that, it would be kind of interesting, I think. I kind of wanted to know more about this Parada rebellion. I know it didn't matter.
Well,
the rebellion wasn't the point of the episode.
So what I think they pique our curiosity. It's one of those things. It's almost like Tolkien-esque in a way, where there's a line that has a clear history, but like there's a whole history behind all this that we don't know. We only know this small sliver. And given that we weren't going to get all the details, I kind of like that at the end of the episode, they weren't like, oh, here's the deal, and this was what was going to happen, and this is exactly what the plan was. It's similar, you know.
Well, I don't want an exposition dump at the end. No, we don't need all
no,
that.
but in the case of, for example, there's that TNG episode. Is it Mind's Eye? I'm trying to remember.
The Nth Degree.
No, the one where Geordi's
The one where Picard has to decide whether or not he's gonna genocide the Borg.
Yeah, you bring that up frequently. It's still not that one.
Jeez, flip.
But no, the one where Geordi's visor is used because they're gonna like have him assassinate somebody. But we know the deal. That whole most of that episode, we know the deal. We know what's going on. The tension is built in a different way, and we know who all the players are. And you know, no spoilers or anything for that episode. But like, it's just the fact is like we're seeing everything happen, and it's more about how are they going to stop it, right? In this episode, we don't have any of that information. We're in the same boat as Clone Brian and being weirded out by what's going on, if this is the first time we're watching. And at the end, when they meet up with those rebel guys, they don't even know what I like it. They're like, we don't know exactly what the plan was. We presume he was programmed to like kill some motherfucker, just like Geordi was. But we don't know. We're just guessing. We just know it was some nefarious shit. It's got to be nefarious if they're making a clone, kidnapping a Starfleet officer, making a clone and sending the clone along.
Gonna blast him.
I just think I wanted to see some Prat and Stinky Pants like fuck with some people in this episode, and I didn't pay off. It didn't pay off.
How are you gonna know they were stinky? I mean, maybe they were already stinky. You can't smell them on the TV.
Well, this
No,
goes
but
back.
but you get to see them all go, ew, gross. No, check, please.
I was going to say, this goes back to your point, Dan, about how they might have done things now. And I think a well-produced version of this today would have had, it wouldn't have had the full-on, ew, stinky, ew, gross. It just would have had, like, in the closing shot when they're like with the rebels and everything's happened, like it's all the drama's done, you know, O'Brien dies and they're all like, oh my god, blah blah blah, and then like just before the end credits roll, you would just see Cisco be like kind of look to the side and make a stinky face, and then it would be like boom, credits. It would just be like a little
that would be perfect payoff.
Yeah.
I would be into that. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea. I would be that would make it all worthwhile.
Yeah. Well,
that was something they do on like the Orville or something like that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you'd even see that on, I think, Star Trek, like Pike doing the pirate voice or something like that. Just a little, little bit of flavor right at the end. All right, how about this? Let's take a quick break,
What?
an extremely quick break.
What?
And then we'll go on to segment 2.
You can't do that.
Not too quick.
Well, we can vote on it. Do you want to take a break?
Let's take a break, but not
Fine, let's take a break.
All right, it's unanimous. We'll take a break.
I didn't want to not take a break anyway.
All right, we'll be right back. We have returned from the break.
I love that opening, that wormhole opening graphic. They did the
yeah.
classic, like at the beginning of that. And I think of the opening scene every time where he's, and of course when you're inside the wormhole, there's all the super wormhole.
It's pretty cool.
And they do more
Sinew
of
time,
that.
time tendons and weirdness.
They do
going
more
on.
of that in the
time
first couple
tendons.
seasons, and then later on they just dispense with most of that stuff. I mean, every now and then you go back to the inside the wormhole stuff, but for the most part,
just stuff coming out of
they
the
stop
wormhole.
bothering with the traversing the wormhole
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and so early
is
seasons are
fine.
great for that. No, it's a good evolution because they've got it in the first few seasons. You can see it when you want to.
You got the idea.
but you kind of don't need to be
But
wasting screen time with that later.
It seems like the one where he's going into the wormhole at the beginning. I think they must just reuse that same animation over
yeah.
and over.
Oh,
That looks
100%.
exactly like it does in the opening.
Yes,
you know?
it's and then reverse it.
I think about how
Flip
that
it and
yeah.
reverse it.
When that thing opens, it must be going so fucking fast. I know we must have gotten. How big is the? We've answered this. We've
I don't
answered
know
this.
if we've answered the old.
Is it parsecs apart?
I don't know how big the wormhole
No, I'm
is
just
off the
kidding.
top of my head.
Wouldn't be that.
Parsecs.
I do know that it's a little ways from Bajor because remember they had to move the station.
How many astronomical units wide is it?
Yeah,
Astronomical units, I think, is also
it's very Earth-centric.
Yeah, just like parsecs.
But it's the Federation, foists
Or-
the Earth-centric
Well,
measurements.
okay, well,
on everything.
how much is it in fucking
Actually, I can't-
Cardassian
Actually, parsecs.
grams?
Wait, isn't
Cardassian grams.
Cardassian space
I
grams.
forget.
Watch out if you order your weed or cocaine
I
in
can't remember-
Cardassian grams.
I can't remember if
fucked up.
parsecs is geocentric or human or anthrocentric.
A
Isn't there-
parsec is a measure of an angle, isn't it?
Well, I thought that
a
parabolic second or something.
Yeah, it's like a
But-
part of the arc second business or something
Yeah,
that's related to that.
Right, so which would be geocentric? I thought there was one where you stick your hand out and put your thumb up and you measure the distance. I could be making that one up. I don't know.
Well, you got to lick your thumb
But
and,
arc
and
second-
you see how the wind is blowing.
Yeah,
You're talking about
pointing
playing
at the
golf.
stars.
You're right about the. It's
By the way,
it is one of those
no one ever sticks their
thing.
thumb up and
I'm
no
squeezing.
one sucks their thumb and sticks it up in the air while playing golf.
They only do one thing after they lick their thumb, and only one place they stick it up. In a donut before they eat it.
Ew, why would you do that?
I grip my donut I select a side of the donut
Bite it with your
and
teeth.
I grip it with my thumb and index finger and then I consume it from the other side.
Consume.
I love donuts. You ever have them mochi donuts?
nice.
That shit is the
Mochi.
Do you
shit.
like
mochi
cake donuts,
donuts.
or more the Krispy Kreme gooey doughy donuts?
Like them both.
Yeah, they're both good.
Like them both.
Yeah.
I know people got their sides, Krispy Kreme, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever, but I'm all about it all.
Either way is.
I mean, I do prefer a bready donut when it comes down to it.
Interesting.
If it comes down to it. But I do like the cakey like ones as well. But a bready donut, with those sinewy glutinous textures. Except if you get a mochi donut, which I believe those are
Mochi.
gluten free because they're made of rice or some shit.
oh, they're
Mochi
actually.
is
It's
made
not
out of
just.
some weird sticky shit.
So it's not just rice. It's not. I mean, I'm sorry. It's not just the flavor of mochi. You're saying it's actually mochi.
It's a different kind of donut, but it's anyway. You could go check it out. Go find it in your local donutery.
I'm trying to figure out how long.
How big the
So the tunnel of the Bajoran wormhole, according to StarTrek.com, says it's approximately 90,000 light years long.
Yeah, but
doesn't say
that's to get to the gamma quadrant.
Right. So I'm more interested
that's
in the
cool.
width. So when it opens, how fast is that
the
thing?
diameter?
The diameter. Yeah. How?
What's the fucking diameter of the wormhole? That's what you should be looking at.
That's what I'm trying to look at, and I'm saying like it's either way, it's moving pretty fucking fast when it opens. Okay, it says diameter is 1,451.82 meters.
That's like the size of
Word.
the Enterprise D, the length somewhere in there.
Is the Enterprise D over a kilometer long?
I think so. I think
Well,
it's 1,000 meters. I could be wrong.
never
There. Maybe
sent,
maybe I got that wrong. Maybe it's 1,000 feet. I think. It's
Oh no,
probably
I'm
1,000
sorry.
feet.
This is the size of Deep Space Nine. Sorry, that's not the
All
wormhole.
right. Yeah,
God
the
damn it.
wormhole's got to be bigger.
They
than
never
that.
sent
Sorry.
the D through the wormhole anyway. So.
Never sent that D through.
Well, but didn't they send? I think they sent some other
The Excelsior.
some other galaxy
going.
class.
So that was wrong. That was the DS9. The wormhole's probably bigger.
All right. Well, you're googling. While you're oogling Google, I also wanted to make the point that about this story, about the plot that I thought was kind of fun, is it all hinges on the fact that like O'Brien is so curious and he's such a problem solver and he's also so attuned to the relationships he has that they cloned the wrong guy. Like this guy, as
Yeah.
soon as something was slightly off, he was going to stop at nothing. He was going to be fucking obsessed with sorting out what the issue is, right? Because like just people are not acting the way they should, and he wants to solve that problem. He's an engineer, right? So I thought that was a cool aspect of this story. Conceivably, they could have cloned somebody else and may have been more successful as a result.
Yeah, like when you got that crack. When he got the only time he got grumpy at Cisco is when Cisco said like you got to fix those upper pylons. He's like, but I just redesigned the whole subsystem myself. And you could tell like there's nothing wrong with those subsystems. The way O'Brien said it, knowing what we know about O'Brien, he doesn't fuck around with that shit. Something must be about.
Somebody went up in there like with a monkey wrench and like broke it up, like whacked it a bunch. And
Do you think O'Brien and Julian are friends because Julian is like a doctor and O'Brien is like a robot doctor or a machine doctor? Like
I think it was like O'Brien's always getting fucked up, like kayaking and shit.
because Julian's younger and O'Brien wants Julian's
Well,
a
even
super person.
even on the Enterprise D, O'Brien was fucking up his shoulder kayaking or whatever, and then now he fucks it up like playing
I
the
see your
future
point.
racquetball. What did they? Do you remember what they call that racquetball?
Pongo ball.
No,
I think they just call it racquetball.
do they they just call it racquetball? Maybe they did, but they just
Parisi squares.
No,
That's
no.
different.
O'Brien's not stupid enough to play Parisi squares.
No, that is a good point. I was just thinking like O'Brien is basically a doctor of the machines. A
Because
machine doctor,
in this
right?
episode,
isn't,
with
the same, isn't that the same thing?
it's analogous.
I think it's more of a philosophical question, but I understand.
That's why they're friends.
I understand and support the point that you're making. That
So I
it's
think
something I had never
They're
considered before.
Two different
'Cause-
sides of
'cause
a coin that's not quite the same.
Because Julian Bashir on Our Man Bashir, he was a James Bond type, but he was solving a mystery. You know,
Julian Bashir also has on
Like he's
multiple
diagnosing
episodes
a disease.
demonstrated an obsessive quality when trying to help cure people of diseases.
I love that part on the DS9 bridge, that little indent,
Yeah.
that little inverse dimple where the I guess it's just engineering stuff down there, but it's on the bridge. It's that part where if you're not careful, you could like walk into it and fall down that hole.
Yeah.
Like then they're
Fall
always,
down that hole.
the engineers are
It's like
always
the
going down
orchestra
there.
pit.
Yeah, that's right. It's like the orchestra pit of the DS9 bridge, and I guess that's just engineering shit. It's just it's a weird design. I kind of love it.
Well, one of the things,
Cardassian,
again, it's one of the upsetting things about having to watch Deep Space Nine in standard definition is the production quality is so fucking amazing on Deep Space Nine, and the fact that they're on this Cardassian station, and for example, Sisko's office was Gul Dukat's office before, right? Is whoever is running it for the Cardassians is all high up and looming over everybody.
Yeah.
And then there's these like successive like terraced layers in terms of basically like the importance of the people going down. And probably that's why the engineering stuff is all like, you know,
It's like way
stay
down there.
down there out of sight. We don't need to be looking at you.
You know, speaking of production, I was watching this on Paramount Plus, as one does, and I kept noticing, I don't know if y'all were getting this, but the screen there'd be these weird screen tearing that was going on, where it would it looks like half the screen was like, it was interlaced over top of each other, and there was it's like, imagine if you took your fingers or your hands, you put them together in like a weave pattern, and for me, the screen would like, it'd be like if you separated, or like if one hand moved, it looked like there was like finger. It looked like the screen was like tearing. I swear to God, I gotta watch it.
How many? I'm not.
Homina.
I'm not discounting what you're saying because I watched it on a personal copy that I have from my private collection. So I cannot confirm whether or not this is a regular thing. I did want to ask you though, is how many bubbly bounces did you have before watching?
None.
Episode?
No.
I'm just wondering if that factored
You
in
think
at all.
my eyeballs were bubbling?
That's a podcast only beverage.
I did have probably had 5 Dr. Pepper Zeros.
Well, because you can get. Have you ever gotten those caffeine hallucinations? The little fairies, the little sparkly fairies that float around. You ever had that?
Man.
I don't get that very often, but every now and then, you know, just a slow morning. So you're knocking back Red Bull, knocking back coffee,
I don't
get to
get
the
that.
office, you get another coffee, and then all of a sudden you just see the occasional little spiraling little
Oh, the things out of your corner of your
little
eyes.
happy little fairies.
Sounds
that float
more
around.
like too much nicotine. Or something.
If you took your fingers and wove them together and then took one hand and moved it over some, but kept the other one the same, you get this pattern of these horizontal lines on top of each other. Suddenly, the screen breaks into this.
Paramount Plus does,
I mean, you
does not
sound
always.
you're talking about a fucking salvia trip.
Yeah,
It doesn't always look the best.
It's
Yeah, I
it's
agree with you,
the
Jesse.
horizontal lines. It looks like the screen is fine, and then it's like they split.
It's Paramount,
Part of it goes to the left, and part of it goes to the right, and there's this weird split where it goes. I know it sounds like I'm talking crazy talk.
No, I know what
But-
I know what you're saying in kind of, because
Yeah.
it doesn't always look that great. It
Yeah.
always sometimes it's a little janky.
I think
Yeah.
the transfers they have for some of these shows are not great.
Yeah, it often
because I've got
happens.
like DVD versions that just they don't look
especially
great, but
the
they look
older
better
ones.
than
It
that.
often happens.
yeah.
It often happens around like a camera change or something.
The
like that. I don't know if it's technically. It's not judder,
What?
but it's something.
I think I
else.
mentioned this
Jitter?
before, but the
Jitter?
Jitter?
Judder.
Voyager
Jitter.
looks funny. Some of the
Judder.
episodes, seasons of Voyager,
Butter.
it's got this funny bordery thing around
Oh,
the top. It's
yeah.
like a little bend in the screen, and
In
there's
the
like some
space-time
shit
continuum.
coming off.
Well, sometimes
Paramount
there's
Plus
like
time.
because there's stuff that when they broadcast those things in 4:3 standard definition, there would be like,
4:3.
I don't know if this is what you're talking about, Jesse, but I know that you sometimes see this where there's there's information that would not have been shown on a regular TV.
Yes.
That's like encoded information along the top, and it's encoded in like pink wavy lines or
Right,
whatever.
It's like that.
But then
Yeah.
sometimes on like Paramount Plus or Netflix or something, you'll see that stuff because they've just copied over the full frame that was never intended to actually be. They were taking into account the distortions of a regular old tube TV.
Right.
Back in the day.
It is like that. It's like this other stuff that's up there.
I remember there was a time when tube TVs and CRT televisions, like
Super VGA.
when the thrift stores, none of the thrift stores would accept them anymore. It's like nobody wants these things anymore. And then within a few years, like everyone's like, I want a CRT television.
Yes.
Because they're like awesome for Nintendo and shit like
Yeah,
that. But
or you can make it into a fish tank.
that probably sounds dangerous.
Or you could use it as a.
But I mean, you wouldn't use the same tube. You would get
Oh.
you'd replace it.
But you have to safely dispose of the tube because you can cause damage to people
You can
and
just pee into
other
it.
living things.
And the environment.
But yeah, so what
The
we're
Sony Trinitrons are super heavy.
no doubt.
Oh my god.
So how about this?
Heaviest television.
I want a
ever
TV
made.
with like the UHF and VHF dials. That's what I want.
I mean, you can go get one.
They're hard to find.
You can probably get like a brand new one that costs
Yeah.
like $3,000.
Yeah, I want an old
an
one.
artisanally put
because
together
that
UHF
stuff
TV.
that doesn't even exist anymore. Right?
Well, they're not broadcasting on those signals.
Yeah,
so
right.
You just get a bunch of gobbledygook.
You get a VHS tape and a
Give
Nintendo
all the
Entertainment
jubes.
System.
You have to get like a digital adapter.
A didgeridapter.
So this is as we mentioned earlier,
What is
another
this?
in the long line. Actually, probably one of the first in the long line of
yes.
let's make Miles get all fucked up.
Yeah.
Let's fuck with Miles.
Make Miles suffer.
And it's not like this was a super heavy one, but it's pretty intense because we're following a character who we know and love, and we find out at the end of the episode that he was a clone the whole time, just a perfect clone with the same memories and all that jazz.
I think I'm a clone now.
He dies. His last thing he says is like, "Tell Keiko I love her."
He doesn't. He goes, "I tell Keiko I love," and then
Yeah.
he dies to make it extra sad.
He's like,
He
"I
doesn't
love
even-
Bashir."
Whoa, that would have been awesome.
Love triangle with
That would be
Bashir and
awesome
Garrick.
because he has all of Miles's memories.
That's why the real
He says-
O'Brien made that face at the end.
That's why the real O'Brien, I think, secretly was the one who killed him.
He killed him so he couldn't get that last word out.
Yeah, he was like, "I don't want that dude to reveal my secrets."
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, it is still even our O'Brien, who we don't see for the vast majority of the episode, is you presume you got to be a little fucked up to watch like a version of you. It's not even just like a clone of you; it's like a perfect clone, memory, everything clone of you just die in front of you.
That's like some Rick and Morty kind of thing.
It is, and just trying to, and all he was trying to do was like figure out why everyone was acting the fucking fool around him.
Yeah. He was.
It's like, why is everyone being so mean to me?
Yeah, he wasn't really trying to hurt anybody. He had to tell people that like something was effed up, and everybody was like, "Listen, man, just cool it. Go back to where you belong. Just keep quiet."
And
like,
he assumed that meant there was like in his mind an ever growing conspiracy.
everybody was a pod person
Yeah,
except
it was.
him.
It was like, was it first?
See-
was it just his wife? Then it was his wife and Julian
He
and
was the
Cisco.
boss.
Then it was like the admirals were in it.
So imagine us, the viewer.
Yeah, even fucking Odo.
Imagine us, the viewer.
That's when once Odo was in it, he had to get the fuck out.
Yeah, the Odo shit I thought was really well played.
Yeah.
Imagine us as the viewer watching it the first time. We're taking on this ride of like, oh my gosh, that's not even O'Brien. It's a different O'Brien. Imagine what he had to feel like. He
Yeah.
basically has the memories of his entire life, and basically his life led up to this one moment where I've been lied to my entire life, which is only like a few hours,
yeah.
but to him it's
Yeah.
that's
Well,
the classic conundrum.
Maybe that's how it happens with everybody.
What are you talking about?
Oh,
That's
man.
terrifying.
Don't say shit like
You know what
that.
happens to everyone? Like one day we wake up, we're like, oh man, I'm the clone.
People
Yeah,
create
and then
whole
you die,
people
that's it.
create whole afterlife and during life structures, philosophies, and just have many ways of dealing with the uncertainty of life. But like to throw that one in there, it's a real bummer.
That is a real bummer. For real.
For real.
But yeah,
That's what I do, man.
the Odo stuff was to me it was a very cruel.
Bring
It was
Back.
very cruel in an important and good way because it was that whole like, oh, Odo was on a trip this whole time, so he's probably not tainted by this, and he shows up and he's all into it. He's like, okay,
like,
I'll
"Wait
check
a
it out.
minute."
Blah blah blah. And then like
They shouldn't
O'Brien,
get anywhere
O'Brien
near
goes
this.
back to him and he's like, so what's the deal? And Odo's like, oh yeah, just don't worry about it. And O'Brien's like, they got to you.
Yeah. The only one who wasn't in on it was Jake. Jake wasn't in on it.
Yes,
No, he was.
He was not. He was sort of.
He wasn't in on it until the very end. They were probably like,
They didn't tell him that
Yeah.
was that Miles and
at the end when he was like, just turn yourself in, then he knew. But when he was talking about that emitter crystal thing, his hands, he was doing some crazy hand movements.
Subspace transceiver.
Yeah,
A really
this-
really old subspace.
really old. Did
he
you
like
notice
saw it in an old rep book.
In like a popular
Blech.
mechanics.
rewatch the first scene with Jake Sisko's talking to O'Brien. His hands are doing some crazy twiddly twaddles the whole time. You should watch his hands.
Oh, Jake Sisko?
Yeah, Jake's doing a lot of twiddly twaddlies with his hand for that first scene. He's talking with O'Brien. Anyway.
I always pay attention to what he's wearing.
yeah.
It's hard not to pay attention to what Jake's wearing. He's stylish.
That's stylish.
I don't know if that's stylish. I think that's rather.
In 1994, that was stylish.
That was the style of the future.
That was future style.
That made even like Wesley's outfit look cool. Like, geez, flip.
Jeez, flip indeed.
Yeah. Well, okay. How about this? We'll just briefly run down some of the other episodes. Don't worry, we're not going to spoil any super details about them for folks who aren't down the line.
That
in
depends on your
DS9 yet.
definition of spoilage.
And then
It does.
If we do, just don't listen.
With the caveat that we are self-defining.
Nobody told you to
because
listen.
there is a spectrum of what people. Sometimes people get mad if you mention that there's going to be a new episode of Star Trek, and they're like, "Well, I didn't know that." It's like, dude, we're 3 episodes into a brand new season of a new show.
So
No.
That could have been the twist.
You don't know that I know that. Yeah, maybe the whole thing is that it ends after 3 episodes, and that's their new thing.
Paramount Plus already tried that with Discovery, where they decided to end the
British
season
Star Trek.
and then bring it back 3 weeks later. And people weren't impressed.
All right. So what are some of the other episodes? Okay, there's Honor Among Thieves, which is one of my personal favorite Deep Space Nine episodes. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But basically, O'Brien is just put into a fucking impossible moral dilemma and endures some sad business in that. Tribunal is that one that comes, I think it's 3rd season. It's after this episode, I know, where he gets framed for some crime and gets like tried on Cardassia by one of them Cardassian bullshit courts. And,
Bullshit courts.
And that's pretty tense.
They have a mockery of justice on that planet.
There's like that Times Orphan where his daughter, and this is not really spoilers in my opinion. The whole plot of the episode is that like his daughter gets stuck back in time and then like turns into like a feral girl that they have to deal with.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, you know,
that was fucked up.
It's first of all, it's fucked up. It's also not a particularly good episode. It's like one of those rare kind of DS9 clunker episodes, and it's mostly just sort of sad and upsetting for most of it. You know. Then there's that whole like there was a magnetic storm that Bashir had to like transfer Miles's baby from Keiko O'Brien's womb into Major Kira.
Right.
And that was just because Kira, the Nana visitor, was pregnant at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
With Alexander Siddig's baby, as I recall. So they needed to explain that.
I didn't
so
know
that was a real Star Trek reason, but it did result in some fun.
There was like the
interpersonal stuff.
The Wraith Keiko when the Wraith took over Keiko.
Wraithco.
Oh yeah, there was the Wraith Keiko one. Yeah,
I want some Wraith
That's
cake.
sort of a.
You wanna
That's
eat
another
some-
one that's not that great an episode.
You want some Wraith cake, Jesse?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
That
which-
sounds delicious. Yes.
Wraith
Give
cake
me 2 slices of Wraith cake
with some lava cream.
with a lot of lava.
Lava. Maybe it's
what
some
else was
lava.
there?
I watched you watch it.
Oh, and then of course, we can't forget Hard Time, which everyone,
Oh, yeah.
even if you've never watched Deep Space Nine, you're probably familiar with the episode where O'Brien just has 20 years of punishment injected into his head and then all sorts of fucked up, horrible shit. Like, you could see a Star Trek episode, like TNG doing that and it being more like different or lighthearted. Deep Space Nine was like, oh no, this is horrible. You're going to see a horrible, upsetting story. And it's a wonderful episode, but it's intense and fucked up. There are lots of other examples of O'Brien being the one who gets fiddled around with for one reason or another. And a lot of that, I think, comes down to, I think many other people have suggested this. O'Brien is that everyman character, right? He was that on TNG. He's even more so that on Deep Space Nine in the terms that he's identified as like, oh, he's just an everyman. So let's have horrible shit happen to him because people can identify with him. I think if you really analyze it closely, this whole everyman thing that people talk about with O'Brien, it doesn't entirely hold up because O'Brien is like a super genius engineer. Yeah. He's been in the wars with Cardassians. He's Lower Decks shows that he's the most important person ever.
He has to be like a mechanical engineer, an electric engineer, and like a computer programmer.
Yes.
He has to be all these motherfucking things.
He's got to fix like the replicator. He's got to fix like the space toilet.
And by the way, I'm not criticizing that.
The garbage machine.
I'm not criticizing the everyman idea, because the reason it works is because of Cole Meany's portrayal of him. That
you got one of the Bolians around. You got to fix the toilet.
What?
Do Bolians poop?
Oh yeah, that's right. Bolians shit.
There was some joke about that.
Wow.
Was that which Star Trek was that? Was that Lower Decks or was that like?
It was either Lower Decks or Discovery. Actually, it may have been Discovery.
There's so much Star Trek on these days. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like Cole Meany is what makes you be able to identify with him as more so than you might identify with Picard or a Kirk or a Julian Bashir or any of these other people.
He was in that movie Far and Away. Do you remember that movie Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman?
I remember it, but I did not view it.
Yeah, that's a good movie actually. It's not
bad. But if it's got Cole Meany in it, I might check it out.
He's also in which one of the the ones with the karate guy, the dumb guy with the train and the boat? You know, is he on the train or the boat?
What?
You know the movie with the train or the boat? There's one movie...
Karate Kid?
No, there's one movie with the train and the bad guys take it over, and then there's one with the boat. I forget which comes first.
What's that one? What is that?
You know? Cole Meany's in one of them. I think it's the one with the train, but it could
I have
be the
no
one with
idea
the boat.
what you're talking about.
What is that? That sounds familiar. No, what is... Yeah.
It's going to drive me nuts that I've forgotten these very famous...
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I'll find it for you while we continue our discussion, but he is an everyman in Star Trek. He's a great actor because in a lot of these other movies, he's not the everyman.
These other movies, other shows.
Yeah, like other movies or other roles he's played. He's played violent dudes, tough guy dudes.
He's been in some sort of recent Western. There's a recent Western TV show. I forget what it's called, but I think he was in that one.
These guys are really helpful.
I know. I'm sorry. But
we're like, no.
I didn't watch it, but I know he was in it.
I don't remember what it was called. You remember that awesome shit that happened?
Well,
I don't remember what it was, but it was cool.
Shut up.
Patrick was doing it too. Patrick began it with this train boat bullshit when he was talking about
Under Siege is the movie. By the way,
I would have
Under
never gotten.
Oh, that guy.
And then Under Siege 2. He's in one of them. I can't forget.
Right,
remember.
that guy.
He was in Con Air too. He was the asshole like government agent in Con Air.
What is that guy? Seagal?
Yeah, Steven Seagal.
I never saw any Steven Seagal movies.
All right, so anyway, Cole Meany, he's rad,
Didn't
right?
that guy moved to North Korea or something?
He's in Russia.
Russia.
He moved to Russia.
Whatever.
And he's always talking about how awesome
That's what it is, Russia.
Putin is.
Of course he is.
Right. Okay. Let's go ahead and take another quick break.
Totally.
And then we'll wrap things up about whispers. Not about. We'll wrap things up. We'll wrap up our discussion.
We'll do the wrap things up, rack, boobity boop. We'll do
wrap-
the wrap things up,
But
rack,
we have to
boobity
whisper.
boop.
We have to whisper the whole
Wrap
rest
up
of
our
the,
discussion
rest
of
the podcast.
We gotta rap like a
Whispers.
whisper, boopity boop. We gotta rap like a whisper, boopity boop. Boopity boop. Boopity boop. Rap like a whisper, boopity boop.
My name is Dan.
We'll be right back. We have returned. We've returned from the break, and we're ready to go.
We never really went anywhere.
Ready to converse.
A quote from that Memory Alpha about the fucking wormhole. It says the visual effects for the wormhole was created by Rhythm and Hughes. Michael Gibson of Rhythm and Hughes described the wormhole thusly. It blossoms suddenly out of black space with multiple layers of swirling gaseous clouds, miles in diameter.
Sounds like your butt.
Yeah,
Is it Hughes like Hues?
yes.
Or is it Hughes like somebody's name is like Brian Hughes?
No, it's Hughes. Well, it's good. You stopped me at the important part, which is it's apparently miles in diameter. So
Like Miles O'Brien. Get it? Miles O'Brien.
I totally got it.
I feel like it's got to be much more than
got it the
because if
most.
if DS9 is 1.5 kilometers tall, It's got to be more than
Like
miles.
those-
It's got to be like 100 miles.
Those
The
upper
wormhole's gotta be-
pylons are like a mile up.
The DS9 is like 1.5 kilometers long. I'm saying the wormhole. Put DS9 next to the wormhole. The wormhole's got to be like thousands of miles, but it says miles.
You literally keep upping it by orders of magnitude.
Except they would
I
say
said thousands.
kilometers.
You went from hundreds to thousands.
I don't know.
They do
I think I said
kilometers.
thousands. I don't remember saying hundreds.
It's all good.
I don't remember saying
They do kilometers.
kilometers. Anyway, point being is it's at least miles diameter.
Miles O'Brien.
It's Miles O'Brien in diameter. Okay. Speaking of Miles O'Brien, it was weird when he was telling Keiko that the replicator would keep the food warm, like he would keep her warm. That was weird and gross. And he's like, the replicator
He was super horny
He
in
was
this
like,
episode.
he was like,
He's
the
not that smooth.
He was like, the replicator will keep the food warm, like I'll keep you warm. And then it was also gross later when he was talking about how he's like, he had sexy letters to his wife. He's like, I hope they enjoyed reading those sexy letters to my wife. What a pervert. What a weird
What do you
way
think
to
he
put-
wrote in those?
And who says it like that? Who goes like, my sexy letters to my wife? You know, that's such a weird 90s.
Well, he just finished like listening to like like all their boring like station logs. He was like falling asleep and stuff.
Yeah, but would you describe it as
funny.
sexy letters? Oh yeah, he was listening to a bunch of that.
I think he was
shit.
just pissed off at that
And
point.
and by
I'm
the
just
way,
saying,
just
you'd
FYI,
call it something else. You wouldn't say sexy letters.
first of all, you'd call it like an email because they had just had. I mean, the term existed in 1994, but it was not sort of diffused into the population.
like when was the last time you wrote something
electronic mail.
something
A
something
subspace transmission.
When was the last time you wrote something that you would call sexy to someone? Check out these sexy texts I sent.
I don't know. Our WhatsApp group can get pretty sexy.
But I'm saying you don't use the word sexy to describe it.
I might start
I'm
doing that
I'm
now.
not arguing what you do. I'm arguing
I'm
how
just
you, what
thinking
the
I might-
word you use to describe
What
it.
word do you use?
There's a two-part answer to you, Dan. First part, I'm in agreement with you. Normally, it's not something you'd expect. However, now that the idea has been introduced,
It's be done ironically.
I might maybe. How about this? I will start using the term sexy more often, and you all
Are
can
you doing me a
determine.
favor?
And you all can choose whether or not to treat it ironically or not.
This world is a little too open-ended for my taste.
Come on, man.
You like structure in your life.
Yeah, I
You like
need
structure.
the structure in order to make sense of this world.
All right. Well, how about this? One thing I wanted to chat about was
Okay.
would there be any like alternative ways that if we were the members of the crew, if we get a subspace message saying FYI, the motherfucker coming back to your station is going to look like your dude, but it ain't. You can trust us. We's the rebels. And so the situation is they're not 100% sure that the O'Brien that's coming back is actually a bad guy O'Brien, right? Because they've just been told this by rebels of the government that they're just about to talk to. So their official discussions are with the government, right? That's the setup. We can infer all of that setup, right? So I think we have to first consider the fact that probably, not to be too nitpicky, one potential issue with this plot is the foundation, which is one would think if they got that message when O'Brien showed up, they would simply like put him in his quarters and they would explain the situation to him. They'd say like, hey,
right.
You are a high-level senior staff officer. We have to explain to you that we got this message. We don't know what the deal is, but we're just FYI, please stay in your room. We're going to keep you in there until we sort this out. And then
That's what they would do on the Enterprise.
Yeah, and whether it was actual O'Brien, Clone O'Brien, because Clone O'Brien's going to react the same way as actual O'Brien, both of those O'Briens would have said, no problem, sir. I understand.
I guess, I mean, I agree with you. The only reason I think I guess you could argue in favor of the other direction is that Julian did that physical, and Julian was like, we had to try the physical to see how much they didn't know at that point how much he knew, I guess.
Yeah, but why do they need to know that if the idea is that he's a danger?
I mean, yeah, they could at least put him in the brig or something.
Yeah,
you know,
if they don't want to put
there's
him
no
in the
reason
brig,
that
Because
sort
the
of-
physical
put him
was
in his room.
inconclusive. The physical, he seemed like it was just O'Brien.
It never works when you play the secrets game, when you
Yes.
try to like have some big elaborate sort of scheme.
maybe that's the very subtle moral of this episode, which otherwise there is no actual moral to the episode.
right.
But maybe the subtle moral is don't tell lies to your friends.
Yeah.
Just
It was-
be upfront.
They were all kind of
Even
clumsy.
if you think they're fake
with it.
friends.
Even Cisco had this kind of funny, kind of coy vibe going on. Like
They were all
When he was
acting
talking
like
to O'Brien.
there's a monster. You're a ghost monster.
Yeah, it's
And we have to
it's
tiptoe
listen,
around
Don't
you.
worry, man. Don't worry. Just why don't you check out those upper pylons, man?
I think there are probably things they could have done differently. Well, I mean, like I said, I would have.
Keiko was pretty lousy too. She was bad at pretending.
Well, she's also a civilian, and and then
sure.
the issue with Molly, of course, as Dan mentioned, you can't. There's nothing you can.
Right,
like she's too young to be in a position to be like, okay, here's the deal. Your dad's a clone,
Can't
but
fool a kid.
Yeah.
right, and it's not clear to us whether they informed Molly, which seems like problematic. On the other hand, you might say you have a duty to inform Molly that your dad might be a monstrous evil clone. On the other hand, I buy into Dan's theory that it wouldn't really matter because Molly's a kid and perceptive and would know that there was something wrong, even if he's the perfect Miles clone. She would be getting a weird vibe at the very least off her mom, because clearly Keiko is in the know. They've gone to Keiko and said, "Hey, we're not 100% sure, but Miles might be like an assassin clone." Right. So yeah, I think it all starts to fall apart anytime Molly's involved. Maybe you get Molly and Keiko off the station earlier. Like Keiko's like, "Hey, I got like something I got to go do, or I got to go to Bashir real quick for some educational conference or something." An emergency educational conference. But yeah, if you remove them, you might have a little bit easier of a time of it, because in the plot of this story anyway, and it could have played out different ways, of course, but in the plot of this story, where Miles really first starts getting weirded out is with the Keiko business, the Keiko and Molly business.
Yeah.
And then he sees Keiko talking to Cisco in a shady fashion. So that's what gets the ball rolling.
And I guess Keiko was trying to usher Molly out the door quickly because of that. Because at the beginning, at the beginning he's all like at 5:30 in the morning,
Yes.
and he orders coffee, and then he goes, and then she's like, "No," and then he goes, "What did I do to deserve that?" And then Keiko's like, I want to do the Vulcan thing while our mind is fresh. And he's like, 5:30 in the morning, if you say so. You know, he's all super grumpy.
That's
Keiko.
Vulcan hours.
You know.
Vulcan hours.
Oh, and there's like the thing with the stew, and you're not really sure if the stew was actually tampered with, or if she's just testing him because he's supposed to like the stew.
That's a good point. Yeah, we don't know, but she
Or she was just trying to keep him. I mean, if
trying to keep him occupied.
Yeah, if you're just told, hey, he might be a clone. Can you just keep him busy and distracted?
She didn't do a good job, because she was like, she made him stew that alerted him that something was up. She's like, you don't like
so
this.
She was acting fucking weird.
She should have foisted whatever regular dinner she was planning on him and been like, just eat it, Miles.
What was that?
Even though there's a replicator and you can have literally whatever the fuck you want.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have to have an endive salad.
Or endive.
An endive salad.
Or endive parsley cues. What was that blue drink? Was that why was that blue drink? What was it? They had some blue drink. Look, like why did they drink
She
blue drink?
mentioned some kind of wine.
Yeah,
Is that some kind of-
because the Romulan ale is blue.
It looked like
often.
it looked like Mad Dog 2020.
Gross.
Yeah.
Gross. Hey kids, if you're gonna swipe some drinks from the
Trek
store,
Kool-Aid.
don't swipe the Mad Dog 2020. Upgrade yourself. If you're gonna go down that path, go down it properly. Spend some money. All right.
Get Brass Monkey instead.
Or steal the good
Are you
shit.
instructing children on how to like drink?
I do not advise children to get involved in any of this.
Probably not
But teens
good,
are going to be teens, and I think it's just better if they're
Kids
getting
is kids.
Get yourself a nice IPA, or
Right. Learn about flavor.
or,
I don't
or a
think-
Pinot Grigio.
I don't think a kid's gonna want to
Pinot
drink an
Gris.
IPA. They just tell them to drink a fucking like.
Then you shouldn't be. This is what I'm getting at.
get
If
a
you're
bottle
not
of
going to be
Kahlua.
drinking
Get a
like an
bottle of
IPA, or if you have to drink Boone's Farm, you shouldn't be drinking. If that's the only way you can drink, if you're like, this is the only thing that's palatable to me is some fucking Mad Dog.
Well,
Upgrade your lifestyle. Treat yourself.
see what your parents have in their liquor cabinet.
No, see, he's telling the kids
Yeah.
what to do.
Sample some stuff.
I'm out of this conversation. I have my own set of opinions, but I'll keep it to myself.
You go up into the bathroom and you open up the thing. They call it the medicine cabinet. You know why? It's full of pills.
Full of great, wonderful.
Guess what? Your parents get all those pills up there. Maybe not these days. Baby boomers, there was always pills in the just endless pills in the.
At one point, and
mountains.
I don't know. Oh, but, okay. So tell me one thing.
Okay.
I'll tell you a few things.
Do robots sweat? Because O'Brien was sweating near the end when he went into the wormhole.
Well, he wasn't a robot.
He's a replicant.
He was a clone.
He was a robot.
No, he was a
When they
clone.
shot him in the chest,
clone.
it zapped.
It did.
Everybody's
zapped.
I just took that as being a weird.
I think he was a robot.
Yeah.
They never said he was a clone.
All right.
Which makes me also brings
I'm
my
not
next
gonna push
point.
back against
Yeah,
that.
they only said he was a replicant, so that could be anything.
Which makes me the next point is when he was zapped, they said, "Doctor, we need you," because Julian was tending to real Brian.
Julian didn't do nothing.
But that's because they shouldn't have gotten a doctor. They should have gotten O'Brien to take care of O'Brien because O'Brien is a robot doctor.
And then everybody's head would have exploded.
Because O'Brien is a robot doctor. Only O'Brien could have saved robot O'Brien. Faux Brian.
O'Brien's not a robot doctor.
That's what an engineer is. It's a robot doctor. That's
Yeah,
why him and
guess.
Julian we already had this conversation, right? Didn't we?
Yeah,
Am I making it up? But maybe he could have fixed it so his head wouldn't explode, and maybe that's what they should have done. Is they should have gotten O'Brien to fix Faux Brian because he's a robot doctor.
Bro Brian.
Bro Brian.
Bro
Then he
Brian
would've
wears
been Bro
sunglasses as a
Brian.
fucking asshole to everyone.
Man, like O'Brien, like
Piss off.
okay, this is just I'm gonna just quote the O'Brien lines from the first Julian exchange just to see if this is interesting at all.
All right. I always love these types of live on air experiments.
Yeah,
Experiment. This is experimental entertainment. We leave these things for the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Dan's experiments.
So this is Julian and O'Brien's first encounter in the episode, just from O'Brien. What is it, Julian? Excuses? For what? Look, this isn't a good day. What are you doing going to the commander about my checkup? Forget it, I've got things to do. That was the first one. At that point, Cisco says...
And all just Miles' lines, right?
Those were just Miles'
Do you have just Bashir's lines?
Oh, shit, I didn't even think to do that. That just didn't occur to me. But then Cisco comes in and goes something about Dr. Bashir's annual report on the senior staff is due. We all had to go through this. And O'Brien's like, fine. But actually, he's nice to Cisco. He's like, fine.
Well,
but then he goes to look
Cisco's
at,
his
he looks at
opposite.
Cisco, he goes, fine. And then he looks at Bashir, goes, fine. I'll be there in an hour. Why is he so stupid about a dumb physical? Why is he being such an asshole about it?
A lot of
I
people.
know,
He's an old hard ass.
He's
But I know-
relatable. He's a relatable everyman.
Look, it's not new to have someone be like, I don't need a physical and be all grumpy about it, but he was a little bit fucking over the top. The second part, he goes,
He's got to wear that. You saw that gown they made him wear?
Maybe he was programmed to resist.
What
the
year
physical.
is it?
maybe.
And that's why I thought he was a clone, because he passed the physical. One would think they would have figured it out if it was like a replicant or a robot.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. So, part 2 of the physical, he goes, are we nearly finished? I believe you've poked every orifice in my body and created a few new ones. Yes, all of them.
A few new
Especially euphoria. Lots of euphoria. Look, if you're determined to keep me here until you find something wrong with me, I'll see if I can't grow you a hangnail. Headache. There you go. In fact, I'm getting a very bad one right now. I'm glad you're enjoying this. It's not doctors I have a problem with. It's you, Julian. And then Julian grabs his balls, tells him to cough, and then asks him about his sex life. Fucking weird. This is what when the
couple of coughs,
this is when
right?
O'Brien is like reasonably grumpy. He goes,
Yeah.
"This is insane. I haven't had a physical this long time since I was born. Look, if I'm dying or
That's
something."
good,
He's like, "That's it, I'm dying." But see, he's so fucking, and he's poor DeCurtis. DeCurtis, he was being
DeCurtis.
I won't go through all the DeCurtis lines, although they're not
Is
that many.
DeCurtis the
kind of name is
engineer
that,
who was working for
DeCurtis?
him?
Yeah, he was just like taking orders.
It was
and
like Ensign de Curtis.
yeah. And
They could have a whole short trek from it's DeCurtis.
Yeah, what a name.
It's an interesting name. They should have a whole short trek from his perspective, where he's just like having a bad day, and all his bosses are just hassling him, and he's like, "I don't know what to do. They told me to do. They told me to break this machine." Cisco
His name
told
is
me."
Curtis de Curtis.
So O'Brien, I will say though.
So stupid.
Curtis De La DeCurtis. I will say one line he says, Cisco gave you permission to start this without asking me first? I don't think so.
Yeah, I know.
I had that happen to me in school once, in high school, where I
Yeah.
had a bathroom pass, and I was like, I won't go too into the personal details of this, but you can probably figure something out if you want to.
I've heard this story.
I like figuring stuff
the
out.
vice principal gave me this like temporary like bathroom pass that I could use over and over again when need be. You can imagine why. And so like I had this thing, and then she was like, just show it to the nurse whenever you need it. It's your automatic pass. You get to. There's a lot of
The
power.
nurse, you had to go pee at the nurse's office?
No, I had to. Well, Wait a minute. Are you trying to get me to divulge information?
No,
here?
but you said show it to the nurse.
Yeah, I had to go to the nurse's office.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But you had to tell the teacher first.
We ain't looking to get into any sort of HIPAA violations.
It wasn't just pee. It was something that required some amount of privacy. Some privacy. So I was allowed to go to the nurse's office.
Seriously, jerk off.
Yeah, that's what I was. I had to do that.
He suffers from an overproduction of semen.
So
I thought they were like, you got to let this guy go to the bathroom, or he's going to leave a cup full of pee-pee.
yeah, that might happen. You never know.
All right. So anyway,
and
somebody didn't believe you.
So that's a lot of power you give to a high school student. I understand, but I went and I showed it to the nurse. She's like, "Look, I've got this permanent pass." And before I finish my sentence, she shakes her head. She goes, "I don't think so." Not even done with my set. She's like, "No." Yeah, you'd wake up pretty early in the morning to get that poo-poo in my mouth. Like,
that old effort.
That's very frustrating.
So that's what Brian's when he says I don't think so. It's like, what do you mean you don't think so? Fucking find out for yourself, motherfucker. Go to the top. When you gonna fucking tell me that I'm lying, fucking go to Cisco then and find out yourself before you accuse me of being a shitty person when all I'm doing is following orders, motherfucker.
I thought that was weird that he was all like, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's like I just fucking yell at me because I'm doing my job and following orders.
Like,
find out for yourself, asshole.
It's like, what is this? Shitty Starfleet? This is real Starfleet.
Really,
I'm doing my job.
I think what we've illustrated today, if nothing else, what we've illustrated today is how personal experiences can result in greatly different reactions to media. And I think that's great. I think it's good to be reminded about that when people are always arguing about this, because we're all coming at Star Trek from a different perspective with different specific things that have happened to us in our lives that inform.
That's the beauty of it.
How we're thinking. Because when I saw that line, I didn't think one way or the other about it. I was just like, it's weird that he wouldn't be to me, as he's a manager. He would expect that he would be in the loop on something.
That dredged up a whole branch of history for me.
Apparently.
Yeah. So
apparently.
the only character he was nice to, not just nice with, it's like Cisco he showed respect, Odo he showed respect. The only character he was openly nice to was the fucking computer. Because
Jake too. He was pretty nice to Jake.
Jake, okay, you're right. It's a good point. But the computer, he starts.
He was trying to be nice to Keiko.
When he was talking to the computer,
he was trying to be real nice to her.
Stone cold.
When he was talking to the computer,
he was like, "Let's fuck."
When he was
I got back from a business trip. Let's fuck.
That was when he was talking to the
it's
computer.
The 90s.
He's so unsmooth.
That when he was talking to the computer,
let's eat some shitty stew and fuck.
he was going back and forth between asking the computer questions and talking to himself, and he's like, just ask the computer something. Then he's like, they'll wait for me to drop out of warp. Well, we'll have to come across that bridge when we come to it, won't we? He's talking to himself. And then the computer's like, please restate question.
Yeah.
And you'd expect O'Brien to be like, oh, you stupid fucking computer. I wasn't talking to you. But he was like, oh, disregard computer. It was like, he was super nice to the computer because he's a robot doctor. That's why he's a robot doctor. He's got good bedside manners with robots.
The robots, yeah.
That's the only character he was openly nice to.
He knows how to tickle those isolinear rods.
Was it the Rio Grande?
I should say the only adult character because
I can't remember which runabout it was.
Because O'Brien would have to.
I do know it was named after a river.
They're all rivers, yeah.
Okay, I'll tell
you.
you.
The other guys were in the Mekong.
Okay, I'll tell you why Jake is exempt from this because Jake is not an adult, and you'd have to be a real asshole to like be.
If he was an adult, they would have gave him a better.
I bet Worf would be mean to Jake.
Yeah, but that's because of honor or something. I don't know.
Worf's just mean to like kids or something.
Yeah.
You have to be
especially his own kid.
O'Brien doesn't fit into. O'Brien can be grumpy to everyone just as long as you know he's got a good heart and won't be mean to like kids. The only adults he's nice to are computers.
Well, I think it's interesting that you observe all this because I do think it's important and it demonstrates his what it is his reaction. I think I was paying more attention to the behavior of the crew. And again, I knew what the twist was, but I was really like looking into like how are they behaving differently because they know this or they suspect that this guy is not the true Miles O'Brien. But you're right. He's reacting. I mean, this whole episode's about his reactions in a sense. So yeah, well done.
Not in a sense.
And then there's the thing with Quark. Now you wonder how much Quark knows because they're not going to tell Quark anything, but Quark has ways of figuring stuff out. So does he actually know, or because he does have
never know.
He has a funny look on his face, like he doesn't know why O'Brien's being so weird.
I think he doesn't know.
I'm leaning
I'm
that way.
kinda making that assumption.
Leaning that way, yeah.
But you're
After a
right.
couple of watches, I'm leaning that way.
But you're right with Quark. It could go either way because
I don't
he
know.
could know and just be like fucking around with the
poker
clones.
face.
You
Yeah.
can always rely on Quark to like when somebody's pissed it off at him, he won't piss it off at him because you can always depend that Quark is
Plasma
not.
bubble.
You can always depend that Quark's not going to be all offended. He'll just be like, "Geez, what got up your craw today?" You know,
Yeah.
and so he'll always take it in stride.
And because he was just talking about racquetball, but like O'Brien's like, what? What are you talking about? What?
Yeah, right. He goes, "Yeah, what is he? He says like,
It's like you and Julian playing racquetball. You don't stand a chance.
what are you talking about, Quark?
He's gonna beat you.
Change the subject." Yeah, because Quark
Right.
talks something about
Change
like
the subject.
He's
It's
like talking
what?
about odds or something.
Yeah.
And he fucking manhandles Quark physically, and
Yeah.
Quark, instead of being like, "You fucker," he's just like, "Geez."
And everybody's like looking at him like they're like, what's going on?
Yeah, totally.
That's the clone.
That's faux Brian for you.
O'Brien.
Everybody else knows but Quark.
All right, we got any odds and ends as we wrap up this
That was
episode?
it.
What about that awesome Batman grenade he threw? That
Oh yeah.
That was cool.
That was pretty tight.
Yeah, I do like the improvised devices. It's always fun.
I like
Again,
the
very
mooring, I like the mooring
spy-crafty.
clamps. I like it when they talk about mooring clamps.
I do enjoy when they talk about mooring clamps
When he was trying
and
to
pylons.
yeah,
pylons.
the upper pylons.
Yeah, and I like when they talk about administrative workaday stuff like we had to move a ship from one pylon. to
Yeah,
another.
yeah. That was a bully.
It was a pain in the ass. The Bolian ship was just full of shit.
Yeah.
when he was talking to the computer, trying to sort of
Tachyon.
How do you say? What's the verb of tactical? Tacticate.
The verb.
Strategize.
When he was out trying to strategize.
Maneuver. The verb is maneuver.
Maneuver.
Or whatever, yeah. Whatever. Well, he wasn't quite maneuvering. Anyway, yeah.
Yes, it was a tactical maneuver.
He's telling the computer.
There's tactics and then there's strategy. They're two different things.
He's all like talking about like maintain.
Tactics is how you implement a strategy.
Yeah, so he's all telling the computer, he's like, maintain silent running status, and the computer's like, confirmed. And then he's like, yeah, where did I go? Now you see me, now you don't. And he goes, what's it gonna be, fellas? You know what that reminds me of? A little movie called American History X, where Avery Brooks says to the character of Edward Furlong, he goes, what's it gonna be, Danny? Or Dan?
Furlong
what's it gonna
is
be,
another
Dan?
measurement of distance.
There's another measurement of
There's
distance.
miles and
It's
then
like an
there's
ancient.
furlong.
It's an ancient.
Miles furlong?
Yeah.
What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? Whoa! I think that's a connection, if there ever was one, which there probably
What's
wasn't.
it gonna be?
All right. That was truly an odd.
It really went nowhere. I didn't even realize that we saw him make that grenade until the second watching. I was like,
Yeah,
oh yeah. I was
he's
like,
all
when did he
like
make that thing?
he's just kind of doing it.
I like
Yeah.
Miles's power book. He was listening to stuff on and
His power book.
going through it. He was making his log, his little laptop thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, that power book. Yeah, and where it's like they listed all the things and it all scrolled down all slowly.
Okay, that's probably enough for what is it? Whispers. So that'll do it for us this week. I don't know what we're talking about next week, but it'll presumably be
Star Trek.
a thoroughly entertaining topic related to Star Trek.
It's got to be like Voyager or Enterprise, I guess.
Yeah, we'll do something along those lines.
Todd
Another-
Waring.
Or something else, a movie, or just
Yeah.
a surprise wild card episode.
Yeah.
Todd Waring played De Curtis.
Whatever it is,
We're going to talk about Todd Waring.
tune in. Yeah, we could do a whole
podcast.
Yeah, we'll just
with
read
freaking
Todd Waring's IMDb
Waring.
page next week. But whatever it is, it's going to be good. It's going to be super fun. I can promise
Presumably.
that's our guarantee.
He played good guy in Oh Boy.
Oh boy! There was a TV show called Oh Boy.
It was a
Oh,
TV
boy.
short.
Sure.
He was apparently in an episode of Sliders.
Oh, I thought
Sliders.
you were saying Slimers.
Slimers.
I didn't know there was a show called Slimers.
Sorry, we're not reading the IMDb stuff about Todd Waring until next week.
Oh, yeah, that'll be next week. This is a preview of that. But in the meantime,
Apple
you
Podcasts.
have, because we provide a week between episodes, that gives you plenty of time. But you listen to the episode, you can evangelize about the about the show, It's Got Star Trek, that's this podcast. You can
That's this
evangelize about it to all your friends and family and your coworkers.
Friends and
Be
family.
like, hey, you stupid motherfuckers, to all your friends and family.
Why don't you listen to our
I was
podcast?
also going to mention, if you go to
Sucker.
some sort of a religious institution, you might not use the colorful language that Dan suggested, but to tell all your friends and family, all the
just
people
get them
you
ready.
interact with.
Just get them ready to what they're
Hey,
about
you
to listen
congregation of sons of bitches.
Like, whatever you're into, spread the word. You can also find us on social media at It's Got Star Trek, and with the @ symbol and all that, on Twitter,
All that
and Instagram, and Facebook, and YouTube.
Pretty much like
and-
I googled It's Got Star Trek and like it was like pages and pages of all the different ways you can get to It's Got
There
Star
you go.
Trek.
Google.
It was something else.
Google. What will they
It
think
was
of
all
next?
the different platforms.
Basically, you type in It's Got Star Trek, you're going to find us wherever you need us. Apple Podcasts and the Spotify and the Stitchers and all
So you
that.
can't do
all that
you
stuff.
can't do reviews on iTunes anymore.
You can't do reviews on iTunes?
Well, I thought you said iTunes wasn't something that people.
Well,
think
no,
about
now it's
anymore.
Apple Podcasts.
Oh.
Yes.
I keep thinking of apple pie when you say apple.
It sounds delicious, doesn't it?
Again, personal experiences
We're gonna make an apple
inform
pie.
our interpretation
Um,
of things we hear.
Next time we're gonna get together, we're gonna bake an apple pie and do a podcast.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, we don't have to tell them about that.
it was good.
We could just do it.
Blueberry pie.
We could
is
just
good.
do that tomorrow.
You like
Huckleberry
blueberry
pie. I like a huckleberry
Yeah,
pie.
I'll do any kind of pie, man.
Raspberry pie.
raspberry.
Raspberry
I don't think
pie.
you can do a raspberry pie.
You can. It's a little tricky. You had to be a little bit more delicate
Like
about
a
it.
raspberry meringue.
I think
Use a different kind of
blueberries.
crust.
Blueberries are most
raspberry
consistent
custard.
for me.
Blueberries are a little too much for me.
I love it.
Oh, blueberries. Is the
Strawberry
shit, man.
rhubarb pie.
Blueberry is my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, I ultimately.
my favorite berry. I don't know about pie.
If we're doing a fruit pie, and if we're not going to count key lime pie, I'm a good old standard apple.
I like a
If you can
pecan.
make if you make a
Pecan.
really good apple pie,
I'm like-
I'm really.
I
into
will
that.
not turn down apple, but
Like
I don't think I've ever been like, oh my god, apple pie. Ah!
Oh no, apple pie is the shit. Dude.
Have you tried the Wegmans apple pie?
I've had
Have
delicious.
you tried the Costco
I've
apple
had
pie?
the most delicious apple pie you can imagine, and it's good. I would
What
always
about,
rather have like a blueberry pie.
Pecan?
Each their own.
I like mincemeat. You like mincemeat?
don't
Yeah, I
think
do
I've
like.
had a
I like
mincemeat.
a mincemeat pie.
So both of
Mincemeat's
you guys
good,
like
man.
apple pie the most?
I'm just like
Sometimes.
when it's a fruit pie. I like a lot of other fruit
When it's
pies.
a fruit pie. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm,
When it's a fruit pie.
I'm going to
Jesse.
enjoy
When
almost
is
every
apple
fruit
pie a
pie.
fruit
No,
pie?
when it is a fruit pie.
This
When
is like a philosophical. When
I don't
is an
understand.
apple
if you
pie?
had to
This
choose,
line of questioning.
if you had to have a fruit pie, would it always be apple?
No, but apple pie is often
high up on the list.
high up on the list. I like a peach.
Peach pie is good.
I would rather have a peach pie than an apple pie.
What about a
I-
peach cobbler?
I would rather have a peach. We're talking about
sure.
pies.
If it's
we're
peach,
not talking
yeah, I know, but
cobbler.
I'm
Pies
saying
with
if
berries
we're going,
in them.
I
if
would
we're going
rather have-
peach, I'm probably
Very
going
nice.
cobbler. If we're going pie, I'll probably
I
go
would
apple.
rather have a
cherry with
blueberry.
cherry with real cherries.
I'd rather
is
have a
great.
blueberry. I'd rather have a cherry. I'd rather have just about anything over an apple pie.
I like a huckleberry pie.
But apple pie's good.
Huckleberry.
Huckleberry pie. All right. That's enough of
What
that
about a
nonsense.
boysenberry?
Strawberry pie is a risk because sometimes strawberries
That's
kind
why.
of suck.
That's why strawberry rhubarb pie is a better bet.
Yeah,
You have
that's
to- you
that's a
usually
good
have to
point.
mix a
That's
strawberry
why that's
with
why they
something
work together.
else.
Rhubarb by itself is weird, and strawberries are hit or miss. So
Yeah.
you mix them
Yeah,
together
you're
with a lot of
mushy.
sugar, and you're good to go.
You can make a strawberry tart. You
It's-
can make a strawberry cobbler, maybe, but a strawberry pie.
What about a strawberry pop tart?
Okay. That has been. It's got.
Would you
fruit
rather have an
pies.
apple pie, homemade apple pie, or a strawberry
Next
pop tart?
week, more Star Trek stuff. We don't know what. Check the social media feeds or whatever.
Pizza rolls.
Or just get surprised, man.
And
My
until
favorite kind
then,
of prize is a surprise.
we hope your life continues to improve. So that's a generic thing to say, right?
That's something that
2022.
somebody
Because like
has
no
said.
matter what level you're at in terms of
We hope it's
life,
getting better.
you want it. We want it to get better.
There's
Because you don't
always
want
up.
it. You
Unless
don't
you're a piece of shit. If you're a piece of shit, I kind of hope your life
Just
starts
stay,
going
stay at the
shitty.
bottom.
But like,
there.
have your life stay the same? Like, I hope your life stays exactly the same. That's no fun. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, even if
That's
you have
a
a good
curse.
life, you don't want it to get worse. But you don't. You know, it's never like that's saying I hope you have a stagnant existence. I mean, that's like, you know.
Yeah, because I don't want to do that, but I also fear we've walked into some dangerous territory.
Yeah, I
here.
think we have.
Yeah,
I think it's time to
I think
end
we
this
need to be
jank.
careful.
Alright, so
what we
okay.
say from here.
Again, we give you the requisite 1 week between episodes to let you think about
It's
all
a
these things.
sufficient gap.
And so we will talk to you.
Fish and gas? Is that what you said, Jesse?
Sufficient gap.
Self-fish and gas?
We'll talk to you at that time in the future, which is next week. God damn it. Good night.
Well, your sense of humor seems normal enough.
I don't have a sense of humor.
Cough. How's the sex life?
I don't have a sense of humor.
Cough. Everything all right in that department?
That department is none of Starfleet's business or yours.